it?
Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
If you
okay, great.
put it in the presentation mode,
Sorry, Baba.
that'd be great. So I'm going to say next slide when I want to slide, okay? Great. So welcome, everybody. And as I started to say earlier, I'm going to give you an overview of the top tech trends for 2025. Why should you care about those? Well, they're not just tech trends, but they're also economic trends, they're market trends, and they're trends that will change your life as well as your work and maybe plan for a more prosperous future. So next slide, please. I've written a series of books. I don't know if any of them are translated in languages that you would like, but they're in English and 5 or 6 other languages. And I've been charting the future of technology and society and business for the past 30 years. So my latest book is Future Smart, and you can download them from Amazon or find them. They're good follow-ups of this presentation as such. And my website has lots of stuff there. Next slide, please. Number of clients. Next slide. Most of my clients are not governments, but they're, I'm a unique futurist in that I take a lot of trends that I write about and then I build businesses around them. Here is with the Honda's robot, Asimo, a number of years ago. So I'm very interested in the convergence of new technologies and how they create economic market value. Next slide, please. This is actually what part of my background is. I built one of the first artificial intelligence companies in my 20s after I was at Apple Computer. So, you know, artificial intelligence will be one of the things I talk about here. Next slide, please. So the key themes or ideas I'm going to talk about are going to be innovation convergence. That's how do you take technologies and how do they work together to create change and opportunity. I'm going to talk about some of the trends that are driving change. Of course, change is a fundamental part of our life. And I'm going to talk about what's happening in terms of new emerging markets. I'll talk about space. I'll talk about clean tech. And I'll show you how some of the technologies that are emerging are going to create economic value for the country, for your life, and for your business sector. And all of this, of course, has been updated for the post-COVID economy. Next slide, please. So central to all of this, a big takeaway is what I call the innovator's mindset. I have studied innovators. I've been an innovator. I've started a number of companies. And a key part of being an innovator or having the right mindset, the right way of seeing things, is to try to see the invisible before others. And sometimes the invisible before others is based on what people use or have a problem and they're trying to find a better solution. It's somewhat hardwired in our own, you know, kind of evolution, how we see the invisible before others. And then we turn that into whether it's a, you know, it's a cell phone or a mobile app or a new economic reality. So a big part of this is how you kind of set up your brain to be able to see what's coming. And the other part of the innovator's mindset for you to be an innovator more has to do with moving quickly. You see opportunities, you make connections, you adapt, you evolve. That's a big part of what you're going to see. This is not just all about technologies. This is also an opportunity for you to look at these technologies and recognize that these are economic and business futures that are emerging right now. Slide, please. So this is the early stage of the global innovation economy. You think about how long computers have been operating, or the internet, or, you know, mapping the human genome. These are all developments, even the cell phone. These are new developments over the past not even 30 to 50 years. So, you know, we're in the early stages of the global innovation economy. So economic prosperity, economic growth, you know, the next Amazons, Apples, you know, Facebooks. This is just the beginning of an explosion of innovations, and I'll explain why. Slide, please. So disruptive technology is changing business norms. People are working remotely. People are creating new products. this is kind of an example of just what this is to kind of disrupt your brain. Why? Because we need to change the way we manage, we build, we invent. And a big part of this is understanding that we're in the midst of a revolution in innovation. Slide, please. Innovation is going to come much faster. So you think about it, in the past, not even 15 years, there have been more technology innovations that have changed our world than the previous 1,000 years. We're going to see the next, not even 15 to 20 years, there'll be an acceleration of new technologies because, and I'll talk a little bit about this, because of the doubling of power of microchips that's referred to as Moore's Law. That was one of the founders of Intel, the chip company. Slide, please. So the goal for you is to innovate fast, or what I call game over. So this is an example of why, part of why maybe there are no dinosaurs is they did not adapt very well. And businesses and societies and organizations need to adapt faster and use those technologies to be able to create more value for their customers or even their citizens. Slide, please. Our only competitive advantage is innovation. So a big takeaway for you, if you want to apply this to your either your studies or your organizations or your business, is to say, what are the key opportunities to be able to innovate? How do we innovate more here? What could we do to provide more value? What is it that we could use in terms of digital tools or digital processes to be able to encourage more innovation? And how do we define innovation? How is it that we could do things not the way we've done them for the past 100 years, but what we could be doing for the next 100 years? What does the future hold that we could do to create more value for whether it's customers or certainly citizens? Slide, please. What's coming is what we refer to as exponential innovations. These are innovations that converge together. So I'm going to talk about 5 key innovations: nanotechnology. What happens when you bring together nanotechnology, which is the manipulation of matter at the atomic level, with biotechnology, all right, in terms of life sciences? What do we create? Do we create an entirely new kind of healthcare system? Well, that's what we're about to do right now. So exponential innovations are innovations that increase in power and impact and work together to be able to create more value. Slide, please. Innovation is coming faster than Moore's Law. So Moore's Law is as I said, the co-founder of Intel, the computer chip company. He forecasted that innovation was occurring every 18 months. But quite frankly, some innovations now are happening because of not just chip technology, but because of the software that's been programmed into the chip level every 3 months. So think about that. Just think about it as change in terms of innovation. There's more technology in your cell phone than existed in the entire world before 1975. We're living in a world where innovation is coming much faster, and our job is to be able to integrate it and think about where and how it's coming. I mean, even 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about the blockchain or cryptocurrencies or mapping the human genome and turning that into medicines. So you should consider we are in the early stages where innovation is accelerating every part of our world. Slide, please. I call it the dynamic innovation economy. And here are some of the elements that make this something that you want to pay attention to. One is smart connectivity. We're going to see the Internet of Things. This is where everything will be tied to the internet. Everything will have a connection to the internet, whether it's your refrigerator, your car, something that you will wear, obviously, your digital tools, smart connectivity. Everything will be tied to social media. That's the new marketing. hyper competition, competition that doesn't, impact you in a year, impacts you next week. So, and also it works for you. You can be more of a hyper competitor by leveraging digital tools, mobile everything and everywhere, and then of course digital twins. These are digital representations of factories, of industries, of other kinds of supply chains that we can apply digital technologies to. The core of the dynamic innovation economy is cheap, fast, connected computers, and of course, cloud computing. Cloud computing. Next slide, please. Now, here is the key map that will explain the top 5 technologies that will transform both the marketplace, society, and the economy, meaning business, for the next 25 to 50 years. If you master this model, you'll understand the implications of why this is going to be so powerful. So if you want to take away one idea, one big idea, this is an idea. Now, this originated out of my work with the National Science Foundation, which is a kind of considered as a think tank for the United States, where we develop new ideas and future ideas. So let me define this for you. There are 5 key technologies. The first is, of course, nanotechnology, which is the manipulation of matter at the atomic level. Nanotechnology, nanoengineering, nanoscience is really the scale. It's a very small scale. The nanoscale is, think about it as the tip of a human hair. So there's a whole universe of devices, systems, and abilities. This is really a breakthrough in material science, the manipulation of matter at the atomic level. Biotechnology is the manipulation of genes, but it also is the development of new pharmaceuticals. You think about what's going on with the COVID crisis. We've developed drugs in a fraction of the time to deal with this global pandemic. And the only way we're able to do that, there's some there's a RNA new approach and a genetic engineering approach. That's the other big thing in this biotech transformation, is the harnessing of genes to understand how to be able to build not just new medical devices and not just new drugs to fight COVID, but also to enhance human beings' longevity and life extension. We're in the midst of a life extension and longevity revolution that's being driven by the developments in biotechnology. We've just, it's not been 20 years that we mapped the human genome. We figured out, what our genome, what the code of life is about. And now I would say the most dominant force in pharmaceuticals and in healthcare, which has yet to really develop, we have the first genetic prevention medicines and devices you'll see that will come out to actually prevent people from getting ill because we've mapped their personal genomics. Of course, the infotech technology is all about computers, robots. Probably the biggest development in the infotech that this particular trend has to do with robotics and artificial intelligence and cloud computing. This past 2-3 years has been a breakthrough in machine intelligence and artificial intelligence, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But those developments are having a massive impact, and particularly creating new jobs, new opportunities for people to be able to not just learn to program artificial intelligence, but to program new kinds of robots. Think about, electric vehicles and cars. That's the other area that's very significant in terms of infotech. Now, neurotechnology has to do with the way the brain works and also learning systems. And what we're learning to do is manipulating neurons. So this is an advanced technology, and we'll be developing this much more so as we move forward. In fact, many of our chip technologies now and our artificial intelligence is based on neurons. And I'll give some examples of this. And the last technology is quantum computing, quantum technology. It's bigger than computing. You're talking about the manipulation of time and space. So let me give you kind of an overview here. So nanotechnology manipulates atoms to be able to create new devices, new materials, and an entirely new way, particularly for industry, to be able to function, self-replication. Biotechnology is all about the manipulation of genes to create not just new drugs, but also be able to predict disease and create new pharmaceutical solutions to actually produce wellness, not just curing people of diseases like COVID, but also preventing them from occurring. And of course, info is all about the manipulation of bits related to whether it's self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, robotics, next generation of space tech, clean tech, are all fundamentally tied to that. The neurotech really is manipulation of neurons, and we're creating even technology that mimics the way the brain thinks and works. And then, of course, quantum computing really is manipulation of qubits, which are like bits, except it's a very different kind of nonlinear form of computing that will replace the current computers that we have today. Now, here's the big jump, okay? You ready? You want to be thinking about, could you go back to that slide? Yep, thank you. You want to look at the exponential convergence of nano, bio, IT, neuro, and quantum. You want to think about these as not just singular technologies and innovations, but you want to think about them together. You want to think about what is the possibility if we were to innovate and create a self-replicating device that modeled the human brain, but maybe could become the brain of a robot that could take care of people or better diagnose disease. We're starting to see that happen now. So it's really, think about it, quantum bio neuro devices or nano bio IT solutions. So these, look at these as problem solving technologies that could be both tools for and create solutions for problems, as well as inventing something entirely new that doesn't exist today. So the future will be transformed by nanobio, IT, neuro, and quantum. Next slide, please. So what are the implications for these exponential technologies? One of them is I've talked about the hacking of life systems. And I use hacking as a kind of as a computer model, hacking from the point of view of being able to bring together elements and program life systems to create not just new drugs, not just new devices, but entirely new kinds of materials that didn't exist before. Slide, please. The hacking of matter, we're beginning to actually start to bring together matter and be able to create entirely new materials that are self-cleaning, are self-odorizing, that are able to have a certain degree of memory for wearables. You're talking about a very different kind of world. We're going to see automation in factories and industries that are driven by autonomous cloud platforms and are going to be they'll have the ability, sophistication to be able to create materials that, quite frankly, we don't have today. This is the manipulation of matter at the atomic level. Slide, please. Also, there are new markets. These new markets are very dynamic. So, for instance, the space market, which is here, is one of the critical markets that is going to be emerging. All of these innovation markets are going to be certainly 10 trillion, well beyond 2025. You're talking about trillions of US dollars for new innovation markets, well beyond just the key technologies that we've talked about. So space tech is one of them. Slide, please. Of course, what's happening, I talked about for medicine, but the merging of cloud computing and devices where you can see inside of the patient as you're operating is going to be a huge area, particularly as technology gets much cheaper, faster, and vastly more powerful. Slide, please. Of course, we think about artificial intelligence. many people don't realize one of the key areas that artificial intelligence is applied to is, and we'll talk more about AI, is the trading of securities. So there's a whole dynamic area where the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, the trading of assets and stocks is going to be increasingly impacted by artificial intelligence. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but this is a huge area of development where the future of securities and stocks are going to be continually impacted by exponential technologies. Slide, please. Now, one of the key areas and key markets that these exponential technologies are going to drive is I've referred to as clean tech. Obviously, we're in the midst, probably the largest challenge facing humanity, other than, of course, the pandemic and future pandemics, is how do we manage climate change? So a whole new area of clean tech and sustainability technologies are emerging, particularly trying to reduce CO2, carbon uh, issuances. You're going to see many more new platforms and technologies to be able to not just address cleaning up the environment, but also coming up with new fuels, biomethanol, renewable diesel, solar, wind. These technologies are going to be, again, because of Moore's law has really changed the economics of energy. You're going to see a lot more additions to CO2 sources. Now, a lot of the world is still going to be using oil and gas. It's not going away, but it's going to end up being cleaner, and there'll be alternative energies that will be emerging. Slide, please. Slide, please. And a big part of this, of course, is modeling. The ability to be able to model whether it's the next drug or it's the next, clean tech. How do we make oil and gas cleaner in terms of changing or adding delinking those molecules that are polluting, if you will, reducing CO2. So visualization of models, markets, and technologies is going to be critically important. Slide, please. Slide, please. Great. So clean tech is one market. Clean tech sustainability is one market. The ability to be able to monitor, access, analyze, clean up, and restore, particularly dealing with climate change. This is a vexing problem, and it's only going to get worse. We have wildfires around the world because of the warming. We have obviously melting glaciers. The seasons are changing, and diseases born of uh, the climate change impact, the warming of the world, has really just started over the past decade. We're going to see more of this occurring if we don't apply technology to what I call green markets. I would say our civilization likely is going to be suffering a variety of risk factors, whether it's rising seas or flooding, or it's increased warming, or the transmission of disease that's related to clean tech. So this is going to be a big area of jobs and new opportunity where technology is directly driving economic growth and prosperity. In fact, as an advisor to governments, I worked with half a dozen governments around the world to help them think about more job creation and universities, job creation opportunities to create the next generation of engineers and technologists to be able to address these changes. One of them is certainly the emergence of green markets. Slide, please. And this is just an example of this is a very innovative idea about creating a space-based solar station that could use an array of mirrors to concentrate the sun's rays on photovoltaic cells. This is electricity. So we might see in certainly within the next 5 to 10 years, different ways to harness sunlight, but also to deflect or remove certain ozone depleting or solar energy that comes directly to the earth. The ability to be able to harness these technologies are going to be critically important to our future. Slide, please. These are examples of clean tech solutions that can use the energy from the ocean to be able to create new kinds of ways to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere. And the recycling of CO2, much the way trees have done, just the way the Amazon, for instance, is a huge recycler of taking CO2 and producing oxygen. We're going to see that process of photosynthesis have to do with what's called carbon capture technology. This is going to be very critical to the well-being and the health of our air quality and atmosphere to reduce deaths and disease associated with climate change and pollution. Slide, please. And these are just more extensions of technology that are going to leverage the ocean. You know, the ocean covers a greater part of the planet than the mass of Earth, and the opportunities to be able to not just, harvest or treat the ocean as a holistic ecosystem is going to be critically important to our future. Slide, please. These are examples of solar platforms that are starting to emerge around the world. This is going to be another way to be able to create more consistent natural forms of renewable energy. Renewable energy, the circular economy, these are critical parts of that. And our ability to be able to manage the earth as an ecological system, a systems approach to energy is going to be one of the most dynamic areas of innovation, job creation, and prosperity, and new company formation. Slide, please. So this is an example of a design for a hydrogen-based airplane. Now, this technology is very early, and there are none of these yet. But again, as a futurist, I want to point out to you that new innovations, again, because technology is becoming much cheaper, but also more powerful. So the ability to be able to use hydrogen to fuel cars, to fuel planes, this is coming in our near future. You're going to hear a lot more about the hydrogen future. Europe is going to make a commitment of over $1 trillion to the hydrogen economy. So this is going to be a dynamic new area. Slide, please. Now, we've talked a lot about some of the key markets. Let's talk about some of the key technology, just to space technology, clean technology. But of course, when it comes to the future data tsunami, our ability to be able to manage all of this kind of data, video for medicine, the energy grid, social networks, smart transactions for industry, we're going to need a better way to be able to manage all this. And of course, it's the future of the internet is being born right now. And internet really 3.0 is all about next generation of a combination of satellite technology, mobile technology, 5, 6, and 7G technology, which will occur. Those are revolutions in the way we, particularly the Internet of Things, how cars, people, cities, smart cities will emerge based on the integration of these emergent application domains. So if this sounds like, I'm talking another language, I am. I'm talking about the language of data, clouds, predictive analytics, the ability to be able to use data to create better understanding of markets, of different parts, problems, whether it's how do we deliver medicine, early diagnostics to be able to determine before people get sick how to prevent that sickness, security and surveillance, how do we identify and create more safety before there's some kind of a hack of our secure systems, how do we use data for better behavior tracking as well as infotainment, how do we create more platforms to be able to entertain and produce other kinds of data. Slide, please. So this is fundamental to what the future of the internet will be about. And having worked with companies like Microsoft and Google and some of the largest companies in the world, both in Singapore, and and Thailand and China, around the world. I've worked with companies and governments. So critical to the futures are three elements you want to take away. One is always connected. The internet will become the backbone of civilization, the backbone of our business, global business. Um, Always on, always connected, always aware. Now, the always aware piece is very critical because the internet now is going through a transformation where it will listen to you. I call it the intuitive internet. And this intuitive internet will not just listen to you, it will become aware of you, and in many regards become more of an enabler, of a helper. So always aware is not really intrusive. It's your ability to be able to use some of these software agents, Alexa for Amazon, or Siri, for Apple. These are artificial intelligence agents in the early stages that are really there to help and serve you to be able to be more effective. But these three elements will shape the internet. Slide, please. I've talked about the Internet of Things. Let me take you through 2030 and 2040. So where we are today is more about the aware object management, and bringing the Internet of Things is, just think about it as every device, whether it's a cell phone or car or even large like buildings, will have a degree of intelligence and connectivity to both the cloud as well as, and I mean by the cloud is most of the processing of technology. Remember, it started with the computer, right? And then we created a cell phone, and now we're learning, and then of course we created the connected cars, and of course buildings started to have controls. Now think about the connectivity of what we call smart cities, where buildings and roads and cell phones and cars and people are connected, and there's a certain degree of what we call sentient environments. That's where we're going. Sentient environments. Those are aware environments that are integrated. So the Internet of Things is going to be a key force in the near future. It's starting to happen now. In fact, that's where 5G is all about. Slide, please. So the predictive enterprise and this future economy is very critically important. What do I mean by the predictive enterprise? How would you like to be able to predict what your customers might need tomorrow? What would you like to do to predict how to be able to create new products and services that don't exist yet, but they're things that solve problems that people are having today? So it's a different mind shift. It's a different approach to thinking about business as a predictive business. And of course, artificial intelligence will be the key driver, the key disruptor of markets and companies. What I mean by disruptors is a good thing, in the sense that it will create new opportunities that didn't exist before, new value for customers. Slide, please. Fully autonomous humanoids, and these are, we used to call them androids, are another big part of this. So this is part of, there'll be social robots, business robots, service robots, even security robots in our near term. This is a model that we created to kind of give an idea, because we'll want the evolution and design of fully autonomous humanoids, robots that can think autonomously but have controls. And of course, one of the key issues around artificial intelligence is, of course, morality, values, human values, humans first. You may be familiar with Asimov's three laws. Basically, we have a lot of work to do to create, robots that listen to humans and respect humans, and at the end of the day are safe for humans to be around. Slide, please. The rise of digital sentience in your lifetime will be likely one of the largest changes that will distinguish our generation from any other generation. Why? There are many problems we do not have the capacity, the computing capacity, to understand. Now, when I'm talking about digital sentience, I'm talking about not just robots, quite frankly, or electric vehicles, or even smart buildings, but imagine digital sentience being a virtual brain and digital personality that is embedded in a city, in a building, in a car, even in us, AI in you. And part of that, you might say, well, why would I want that? Well, 1 out of 2 people on the planet will be likely, if you live older than 75, you'll be at risk for Alzheimer's. So one of the key problem sets that follows us as we help people live longer is Alzheimer's, dementia, and remember I talked about neurotechnology. One of the key aspects of neurotechnology is to be able to prevent dementia, Alzheimer's in the later stages of our lives. The ability to be able to even have a digital sentience capability in our own consciousness or tied to the cloud, where can remind us who people are, where, in other words, to help us with our memory is going to be critically important. That's just one application. Slide, please. So designed evolution, enhanced AI minds. So I'm talking about this right now. So designed evolution says that we have the ability to be able to augment our intelligence and fix certain parts of our own cognition, part of our own experience that is either damaged because of, as I said, a disease like Alzheimer's, or we might want to also refresh part of our brain. So the ability to be able to boost our own cognition in terms of intelligence, memory, is going to be a critical part of how we evolve with technology. You think about what a pacemaker is. A pacemaker is a device that helps your heart function better. It's the size of a quarter, right? A small coin. Imagine that same pacemaker, a cognitive pacemaker that's in your brain to help boost your memory. This will occur in our lifetime. These technologies exist. And because of Moore's second law, where the cost of technology will be reduced by 50%, though the power may be enhanced by 100% due to Moore's first law, this is part of the metrics of our life. Being a futurist, there's a number of different obvious things that are occurring that make it not easy, but certainly practical and reasonable for me to forecast, and enhancing our brains with all kinds of, not just AI, but cloud-based technology to help us. Who doesn't want to remember the loved ones when we're suffering from a degree of dementia in old age? We'll have the ability to be able to boost intelligence, but also boost memory in our lifetime, I would forecast. Slide, please. So, of course, big data, we talk a lot about that, but maybe a lot of people are unfamiliar. Let me just define this. Big data is any kind of video, audio, any kind of text. It also has to do with, as I said, the most important takeaway from big data for me is not just complex databases or analytics. It's the ability to be able to create a predictive capability. The predictive capability of big data is what's going to make the difference about if you get sick, when you get sick, what problems may occur before they occur, how might that affect, energy, how that might affect healthcare, or the development of entirely new solutions that don't even exist. We can't even imagine today, such as, what would it be like to create a new space-based engine that could take the ground, the elements of a planet such as Mars, and turn that into food systems that humans could live on, and therefore we could live on Mars. Things that sound crazy today, quite frankly, could become part of the normalcy of tomorrow. Slide, please. So what do I mean by meaningful prediction for big data? Well, you think of energy, commerce, finance, health, ecology, security. These are all, right now, we're generating a lot of data for each of these areas, but we haven't generated a lot of prediction, right? We're collecting a lot of data. What's the data of energy use on the planet? Think about that, right? You're talking about an enormous amount of data to understand climate change, to understand energy needs, to understand that. So each of these areas, the collection of data is the first stage. The second stage is the ability to be able to take this data and turning it into meaningful prediction. What does that mean? Well, when it has to do with healthcare, we've exampled as creating new medical devices, or certainly like with the COVID pharmaceutical development. If we could apply that to cancer, for instance, that would change certainly the population on the planet, right? Also, the ability to be able to predict when and how there might be a problem or a threat or a risk. Half the time, as a futurist, I'm predicting global risks that could be better managed if we had more meaningful prediction from big data. And that's just not just computers, but also we'll have to have, if you will, artificial intelligence applied to understanding the data, because as I said earlier, human beings are struggling with how to solve complex problems. We don't really, for instance, understand, we don't have the climate science today, just so you understand. There are many issues that we do not have either the computing power or the science yet to be able to solve. Cancer is one example of that. There are many genetic diseases we don't understand that have to be resolved. We don't understand many global issues, such as there is not a global digital supply chain for food. We still have, out of 7.1 billion people on the planet, there's still a billion people still who are struggling with malnutrition and poverty, and of course not even having access to clean water or food. So we have a lot of issues as a planet to be able to address, where meaningful prediction and the harnessing of big data could make a very significant impact, and I forecast it will over the next 10 to 25 years. Slide, please. So predictive analytics, I would say this could be a job area, an employment area. If every university in your country, around the world, should be training people how to understand what predictive analytics is. It's a combination of knowledge engineering, it's a combination of understanding technology, it's a combination of data mining, artificial intelligence. This is the operational part. This is how you do meaningful, big data prediction, is you got to train people to understand this. And a lot of predictive analytics will be evolved through, I think, artificial intelligence, and that will be the force that changes, I think, enterprises, governments, and will create many more entrepreneurs. Slide, please. So these are some examples of big data analytics that are used for better targeting. This is a hack, an attack of computer hacking between around the world. Slide, please. This is an example of communities. This is a data map of the interconnection of internet communities. Interestingly, it looks also like if you were to take a picture of the brain, this is actually the energy from the brain. It looks exactly like that, which is very interesting, right? That we're building internet platforms that look like the brain, or how the brain stems out, how it maps. This could be a brain map as well. Slide, please. The ability to be able to, we're at the early stages of wearables and new approaches to virtual reality. I call it blended reality. Slide, please. This is an example of internet communities and how dynamic they are, and also how they relate in real time. Slide, please. So when you think about cell phones, we're going to have new kinds of devices, new kinds of things that basically give us a way to even go beyond devices, where we'll be able to use this blended reality to be able to better navigate. Slide, please. And this is an example of what we call geointelligence, where we're able to both have real-time information. Here's this individual who's doing some mapping and sharing this in a conference call where people collectively able to see trends and date. This is a particular, it has to do with geological changes, but it could be related to health. In fact, there's a whole new area of geointelligence and health that's just beginning right now. Slide, please. So I refer to this as blended reality, where you bring together both reality that's in virtual reality and physical reality, and they work together to create value, new products, and new ways of visualizing problems. Slide, please. Blended reality also is a morphing of media ecologies, web data, geolocation, and of course, collaboration. It'll change our world. Slide, please. This is just another example of this kind of blended reality. Slide, please. And of course, much of it will be related to touch, the kinesthetics of touch. Slide, please. Of course, shopping, you can't have blended reality without shopping. Here's two gals that are shopping as they walk down the street. Notice there's no store there. The store is virtual, but they saw something they liked, a jacket, they were able to pull it up in real time. So the internet will be free of the computer and the device. Slide, please. Slide, please. Keep moving. Slide, please. So this hyper-connected economy, this convergence of connected customers, devices, data, markets, Internet of Things, you're talking about a very different kind of world that's emerging as we speak today, and a lot of it will be driven by these technologies. Slide, please. And also, it's not just the emergence of smart machines, but also the autonomous economy. A big part of the economy will be driven by autonomy, meaning not just artificial intelligence, but in entire cities, buildings, we call it smart cities. Autonomous economy is actually income producing economic value that is not based just on human beings, based on autonomous technology. Slide, please. This is, when we talk about artificial intelligence, this is kind of the combination of things that make AI work, meaning, again, this is a call out for universities, a call out for jobs and entrepreneurs. It's the combination of really pattern recognition, statistics, data mining, understanding data better. Slide, please. And we're entering a new era of machine consciousness, machine intelligence, and machine learning. These are the three stages of artificial intelligence. Many more, the higher end, this third stage of machine consciousness is where we're headed over the next 25 years. You have the beginning of bots, Alexa, Cortana. These are user-driven big data models for machine learning, but where we're headed is much more what I call sentience, meaning much more self-aware consciousness that is, of course, I view it as collaborators and helpers of humanity. Slide, please. Many companies are involved in this around the world, and there's new developments happening. There is over $500 billion a year being spent on artificial intelligence. It is the key driver of business, key driver of what's next for technology. Slide, please. So the next generation of computers are going to be self-evolving artificial intelligences, combination of nano, bio, IT, neuro. The chips that Intel, NVIDIA, Hitachi are developing are all at the nano scale, manipulation of matter at the atomic level. They're now at 7 nanometers. That's the size of chips. They're very, 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 very small, smaller than the tip of a hair, as I said. Eventually, they'll be 5 nanometers. Below 1 nanometer, you have to get to the quantum level, And that's where quantum technology will emerge. Manipulation of time and space, the ability to be able to harness quantum platforms could lead to an entirely new generation of computing to solve complex problems that we cannot at this moment. Slide, please. This is an example of Google's, this is from D-Wave, but Google's forecast is our quantum computer is 100 million times faster than a PC. I think it will be, in a very short period of time, it'll be over 100 billion times faster than a PC. Slide, please. Now, why should you care about quantum computing? Because guess what? Quantum computers will drive the future of the internet, and the internet will drive the global economy and entertainment and education. Talking about a vastly different world. So the AI futures, which is going to be based on quantum neural networks. I gave a TED talk on this. You can find this on the future of AI, good, bad, and scary. Slide, please. Of course, the coevolution of artificial intelligence, robotics, is upon us. I'll say a few things about that, and then we'll leave time for your questions. Slide, please. We're going to see this robo-AI convergence create different kinds of AIs. AIs that are virtual, AIs that are inside of our cars, as I said earlier, inside of us, smarter cities, the ability to be able to solve problems. Think about it. You look around at your cities, and what we find is a lot of waste. We waste energy, we waste light. We don't have waste to energy transformation systems. We're throwing out waste on one side, we should be turning it into energy. And it has a big impact on everything from agriculture to security to healthcare to just productivity. The total waste on the planet is over $100 trillion. If we learn to harness waste, learned how to use AI to be able to better analyze the data associated with food waste, plastic waste, organic waste, you're talking about an engine of growth, jobs, and productivity. It doesn't exist today. That's not offered by any government or any international organization. So we're still a fairly primitive civilization. We throw our waste out, and we're still pulling our energy out of the ground from dead dinosaurs. Think about that. Slide, please. And of course, this next generation of technologies will be mobile. They'll be not just, semi-autonomous, but again, we have artificial intelligence creating solutions, self-organizing, self-educating themselves to solve problems that humans can't solve. It on a project with Bumrungrad Hospital in Bangkok, where they serve over 1 million people a year, they've gone ahead and worked with IBM's Watson to create a new diagnostic tool around in the United States and around the world to analyze in the cloud, come up with diagnostic solutions and treatment solutions that human doctors could not even conceptualize. That has been a success. You're going to hear a lot more of that in the near future. Slide, please. So this human cognitive enhancement, as I said, this is kind of the far future of what's coming next. Would you like to accelerate your intelligence? Would you like to augment your mobility? Would you like to think about mind-to-mind access, where you'd have active telepathy with people around you? I know this sounds like some kind of Star Trek, but this is the future of accelerated learning. Slide, please. And of course, it'll have an impact, as I said earlier, on healthcare. Slide, please. Impact on our cognitive services, meaning thinking differently, not just smart or healthy, but also differently. In other words, all of us are inventors. All of us are entrepreneurs. All of us, with the right skills, the right tools, can be game changers to create better futures for all of us. Slide, please. The web as an AI, the autonomous evolutionary networks Years ago, I started a company that created a new approach to looking at evolutionary networks. And, we're talking about a different view of intelligence. Slide, please. So this is my website. Let's just stop right here. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And if you raise your hand or you put a question in there, I'll let Alma, if you want to facilitate that, that would be great. And I appreciate talking to all of you. I want to remind you that the future just doesn't happen. You make the future happen. These technologies are really tools, just like shovels were, right? Or hammers were. You want to create a better future for yourself, your family, your friends, your society. You have the tools now more so than ever before. A cell phone is a tool, a website is a tool, digital supply chains. You have the ability to be able to create, invent, and transform the future that you want. The future just doesn't happen. You make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Canton. And yes, we have some questions here. So Dr. Hartmut Fischer is asking, can you say about something about batteries?
So there are over 200 battery companies working on new battery developments right now. They vary, they're everything from direct to solar to lithium to now the battery guys that are ahead, such as Tesla, Elon Musk, there are a number, let's just say there's a race for which battery platform, which technology is going to be the winner. I can't tell you exactly which is going to be the winner. I can give you a direction beyond where we are today. So any battery that is dependent upon a rare earth material that is hard to get will not succeed. The batteries that are going to be tied to some kind of photovoltaics have a limited application, but the batteries that are able to maybe use hydrogen to be able to capture and store. The problem with solar is it's not consistent. It's intermittent technology. So I think the direction is, I'll give you a future perspective on batteries that I think that nanotechnology applied to optics, the leveraging of not just electrons, but photo optics, I think is going to be a direction, because you can store, things that are harnessing light and also very low cost. So regenerative batteries that are using elements around us or are using new freely, like you can produce and access hydrogen. The ability to be able to crack hydrogen with water, that process is expensive only because it's not a mass market. So I think that's the direction. And there will be on the way a variety of, next generation lithium or next generation material sciences. But look at nanotechnology as a material science that will build and create more active batteries that are smaller, cheaper, and produce more yield, which is my sense. Next question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is the question from Ali. How ethical would it be to use the enhanced AI to better detect lying? Or in other legal situations, are we taking sufficient steps to create a global legal system that could protect human rights and privacy within this new era of technology?
So technology always goes faster than law and social science, right? So you're asking a good question. My biggest concern about AI is that it will invade privacy, or it will create killer robots, or it will impede our security. Now, we all know which of the countries around the world might use technology against their own citizens, or to wage war, or to manipulate information to be able to gain an advantage. So we have to be very concerned and pass laws and make sure that there are safeguards on artificial intelligence and robotics, so that it does not impact our human rights and our own way of life, if you will. All right. So that's something you can do, right? Because it's lagging at the moment. Next question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have the next question from Baglan Plyushov. He is asking about the cryptocurrencies. So in your view, what are the cryptocurrencies that would increase in price as a Bitcoin? Is it possible that cryptocurrency would be used in the future as simple currency nowadays? If yes, what will happen with national currencies of countries? If not, why?
Well, it's a big question, so I'll try to answer it. Eventually, you will have there's 2 or 3 different kinds of cryptocurrencies. All right, so there's cryptocurrencies that are used for storing value, the way you would have gold. I think there's also currencies that would replace cryptocurrencies that would replace sovereign currencies, right? Like China right now is experimenting with a digital yuan. And of course, digital technology has the ability to be more easily, watched, monitored, and the original idea of cryptocurrency was not to be dominated by governments. So you're going to have 2 sets of cryptocurrencies. One set of cryptocurrencies are going to be monitored by and regulated by governments. You got to have another set of cryptocurrencies that are not going to be regulated by governments, but they're going to be what they were designed for based on the original inventors, to be used as an exchange of value between individuals, and was to be designed without government control. And this is going to be a big challenge in the future for governments who are going to try to tax people who have cryptocurrency, and those individuals. In other words, do cryptocurrencies really represent freedom, opportunity, and for all intents and purposes, it is the opposite of government. They're going to try to avoid government surveillance because it really was based on individual, what's called P2P, person to person exchange of value. So you're going to see a battle between the individual and the state over cryptocurrencies. And that dialogue, that has been the key tension in the past, 500 years. Who has the rights in society? The individual, the state, how much? And cryptocurrency is really going to be a debate for who gets to control what and where. Next question.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Aziza Nauruzbaeva. Thank you very much for your presentation. Many people talk about the risks from the big transition to artificial intelligence. What, in your opinion, is the biggest threat or risk from the transition to AI? Thank you.
Well, I think there'll be the biggest risk is that people are afraid of it. I think that I would just look at it as a tool. I would be less afraid of artificial intelligence than I would wanting to be involved so that you can create more controls. I've always said, we have to learn to control AI before it controls us. So the biggest risk is not being involved. The biggest risk is thinking it's somebody else's business. And the biggest risk is not understanding that there's more benefits than risks. So I think being involved in terms of controls, what do I mean by that? I think that there should be an on and off switch on all artificial intelligence. I think that we need to teach AIs to be respectful of humans first. It should be a human first strategy. I think they should have morality. I also think that again, this comes back to the issue of cryptocurrencies. Who gets to control AI? I think the job of government is to regulate or encourage the private sector to have regulations, but I do think that there will be risks to our security and privacy, that we need to make sure AI is not used against individuals, human rights, human dignity, and their privacy.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 3 more questions, if it's possible. Eldar Kasyanov is asking, is blended reality the same concept as augmented reality?
No, it's similar, but different. Blended reality has to do with, both the layering of virtual and physical realities together. Augmented reality has some of that, AR, but it's a little different. It has to do with also the sharing of information and the sensing of information across the virtual to the physical and back and forth. So it has to do with many elements that are similar to that. So the big area, of course, is virtual reality. And then, of course, blended reality is really the simultaneous convergence of both physical and virtual in one place. Next question.
Thank you very much. The next question from Daurian Iskakov. Thank you very much. I have a question. Can you please point key limitations that affect global future developments right now? And what is your opinion on big data companies like Google and Facebook?
Well, I don't know what you mean by what's my opinion about them. I think that, again, technology can be used for both good and for bad. Google, Twitter, Facebook, all these big data companies, there's an explosion of innovation going on, and they're all new. These are new companies. These are companies that have created new business models that have created a tremendous amount of market wealth and creativity and new business models that haven't existed before. Google is bigger than Exxon. Facebook is bigger than many older technology companies and new ones. They're trying to figure out how to become more ethical. Ethical companies don't operate the same way. They're trying. This is kind of, like I said, this is the early stage of the innovation economy. So the ability to be able to self-police yourself in terms of fake news, or the tension between creating free speech and being in a democratic society. I think those are challenges, and I don't think that it's an easy task yet to figure out what the rules are. But I don't think also that these companies are bad companies or trying to manipulate human beings per se. I think they're struggling with what's the right way to be able to treat people and information and data. And they've made mistakes. They'll make more mistakes. That's part of what inventing new things is all about. You make mistakes, you learn fast, you learn lessons, you move on.
Thank you very much. And we have one more question from Nijat Kapar. How do successful technology-based companies making the stretch from current to technologies such as Apple from an organizational or managerial point of view?
I don't understand the question. Could you restate it?
Yeah, how do high-tech companies making the stretch from the current technologies, from the current to new technologies, from the organizational and managerial point of view?
Yeah, so there's two or three different ways, and thank you for that question. It's the first question I heard that was based on something that was positive, that you have an idea what to do. So look, there are a couple of different ways to play in the game. One way you play in the game is you as an entrepreneur decide you're going to use these companies, Apple, Facebook, the Google. They've all created multi-billion-dollar platforms that enable entrepreneurs to make money and create new products and services. Apple's App Store pays out over $100 million to people who are small entrepreneurs around the world, right? Google is transforming the internet and their search engines to be able to provide money. YouTube, others. So one way to play the game is you leverage off of existing technology platforms so that you can go ahead. By the way, you could be a movie producer and you want to create something for Netflix, not just the big technology companies, right? You could decide you want to go ahead and find an audience. There are artists, entrepreneurs, small businesses that depend on these bigger companies, because these big companies really are ecosystems of innovation. They may spend billions of dollars on innovation that really benefits not just their customers, but entrepreneurs. So I think the ability to be able to, for instance, also not just leverage off of the big companies, but cloud computing. Amazon Web Services, Google Services, Microsoft's AI. These are all becoming commodities. So I think you have a lot of opportunities to leverage these technologies. By the way, the smaller companies, not just the big companies, but the smaller companies, wherever they are in the world, have a greater opportunity today to use the internet, to use cloud computing, to use the mobile app universe to create new solutions, whether it's for protecting security, or it's creating healthcare. I mean, you think about it, the innovators in the COVID pharmaceutical were not just the big pharmas. They're small labs that were using advanced computers and collaboration around the world to be able to solve big problems. That's the beauty of cloud computing and the internet. It levels the playing field. So it's no longer just the big companies with all the dollars that are the inventors of or creators of innovation. You look at TikTok. What has TikTok done? It's an entirely new platform that has more members than Facebook. You're talking about little small companies that come out of no place that could use the internet, who don't even have offices. I mean, I helped start an AI company that has no offices. It's got 50 people and is doing very well and has 20 customers. So, and it was born not even 2 years ago. So I think I'm very, I want to just say that, innovation is something that you should study and understand. It's dynamic and happening right now. Any other questions?
Oh, actually, we have some more questions. However, the time is up right now. Would you accommodate the last question,
Sure.
if it's possible? Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So Dariga Shametova is asking, I'm interested, shall we proceed here with using the social networks for work and communication in the future, or it is better to eliminate, because some see social networks as helpful, however, the others see as a tool for manipulating and making people a zombie out of people?
No, it's, again, social networks are just a tool. Use them for marketing, use them for enterprise, use them for social. Again, it's up to you how much time you want to spend on your social networks in terms of personal. I don't spend a lot of time on them, but I use them for marketing. I use them for social selling. I use them for social marketing. But from a lifestyle point of view, I would rather go out and enjoy nature than spend all my time on a computer. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Canton. We were really happy to have you today at the KeyMap University Global Leadership Forum, and we look forward to have more communication with you in the future. So, and on behalf of the KeyMap University, let us wish you all the best in your future endeavors and all the best in the development of your company. Thank you very much.
I look forward to maybe seeing you someday, right? And all that. Mm-hmm. All right, very good. I'll send you an email. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Dear guests of the KeyMap Global Leadership Forum, thank you very much for attending our program today, and we will continue with more interesting guest lectures, global speakers. On 21st of January at 7 p.m. we have Dr. William Courtney, who will be talking about the reflections on Kazakhstan, US relations, so you are very welcome to attend. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.